He was the epitome of success, a shining beacon in the world's eyes. Women desired him. Men envied him. His life seemed charmed. He possessed an aura of power and confidence. Wealth and possessions came easily. He was living the dream, or so it appeared. Beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect life, darkness lurked. The man grappled with his own demons. He was haunted by a past he couldn't escape. His flaws and insecurities whispered to him in the quiet moments. He was a paradox, a confusing mix of narcissism and empathy. He craved admiration, yet felt a deep well of compassion for others. He could be charming and manipulative, kind and cruel. He was a walking contradiction, and this duality tore him apart. His empathy, though genuine, was often misplaced. He saw the good in everyone, even those who didn't deserve it. This naivety led to disappointment and pain. He wanted to save the world, but he couldn't even save himself. He carried the weight of the world on his shoulders. He felt the pain of those around him as if it were his own. This sensitivity, though admirable, became a burden he could not bear. It was a curse disguised as a gift. The carefully constructed facade began to crumble. The cracks grew larger with each passing day. He could no longer ignore the emptiness inside. The man was adrift, lost in a sea of his own making. His mind raced, searching for answers that seemed just out of reach. He questioned everything, his purpose, his identity, his very existence. The world he thought he knew seemed to dissolve around him. He withdrew from those who claimed to love him. Their presence served only to amplify his feelings of isolation. Their well-intentioned words bounced off the walls he had erected around his heart. Life had lost its flavor. Everything seemed dull and meaningless. The colors of the world faded to gray. He was a prisoner in his own gilded cage. The man was a shattered reflection in a broken mirror, desperate for someone to see him, truly see him for who he was. He was acutely aware of the image he projected. People saw what they wanted to see: success, confidence, charm. They flocked to him, drawn to his charisma like moths to a flame. He played the part willingly, feeding their illusions while starving his own soul. He saw the envy in the eyes of men, the desire in the eyes of women. It was a game he knew how to play, a dance he had mastered long ago. He could manipulate their perceptions, elicit the desired response with a look, a touch, a carefully chosen word. But the charade was growing tiresome. Their admiration felt like a weight upon his chest, suffocating him. He craved authenticity, a genuine connection that transcended the superficiality of his world. Each encounter left him feeling emptier than before. He was a mirror reflecting their desires, their projections, never revealing the turmoil that raged within. He was a stranger to himself, lost in a labyrinth of his own making. His empathy was both a blessing and a curse. He felt the emotions of others as keenly as his own. Their joys amplified his own, but their pain cut him like a knife. He carried their burdens as if they were his own, a self-inflicted wound that refused to heal. He saw the good in everyone, even when it was buried beneath layers of hurt and anger. He believed in the possibility of redemption, even for those who seemed beyond saving. It was this unwavering faith in humanity that made him both extraordinary and naive. He attracted broken souls like a beacon in the night. They sensed his empathy, his willingness to listen without judgment. He offered solace in their darkest hours, a shoulder to cry on, a kind word when they needed it most. But his compassion was often misplaced. He gave too much of himself, trying to fill the voids in others while ignoring the gaping hole in his own heart. He was a savior who couldn't save himself, a healer who couldn't heal his own wounds. His mind was a battlefield, a constant struggle between the light and the darkness. His thoughts raced, spiraling into self-doubt and despair. The past haunted him, its ghosts whispering lies in his ear. He was trapped in a cycle of self-sabotage, his own worst enemy. He knew his thoughts were distorted, his perceptions skewed, but he couldn't seem to escape the prison of his own mind. He was a master of rationalization, justifying his actions even as he knew they were wrong. He constructed elaborate facades to hide his true self, even from himself. He wore masks of confidence and charm, but beneath the surface he was terrified of being exposed, of being seen for the fraud he believed himself to be. He craved authenticity, but he was afraid of what he might find. He was lost in a labyrinth of his own creation, the walls closing in, suffocating him with their suffocating familiarity. His carefully constructed reality was crumbling. The man he pretended to be was fading, leaving behind a raw, exposed nerve. The pain was unbearable. He had built his life on a foundation of illusions, and now it was all crashing down around him. He had always prided himself on his strength, his ability to control his emotions, but this was different. This was a pain that cut to the core of his being, a pain that threatened to consume him entirely. He lashed out, pushing away anyone who dared to get close. Their concern felt like pity, their love a painful reminder of his own emptiness. He retreated further into himself, seeking refuge in isolation, but finding only despair. He had become the very thing he feared most, a broken man, lost and alone in a world that no longer made sense. Section 2. A universe in ruins. The world, once vibrant and full of promise, now appeared dull and lifeless. The colours seemed to have drained away, leaving behind a bleak, monochromatic landscape. His senses, once so acute, now felt muted, as if a thick fog had descended upon his soul. He saw the same patterns repeating themselves, the same empty pursuits, the same desperate search for meaning in a meaningless world. The futility of it all washed over him, leaving him feeling empty and defeated. His accomplishments, once a source of pride, now seemed like trinkets, meaningless baubles acquired in a game he no longer wished to play. His past successes felt hollow, his future aspirations like ashes in his mouth. He was adrift in a sea of existential angst, buffeted by waves of despair and disillusionment. He had lost his bearings, his compass shattered, his map torn to shreds. He was a ship without a rudder, lost in a storm of his own making. Section 3. Fleeting meaning, elusive purpose. He yearned for answers, for some kind of cosmic explanation for the pain he was enduring. He searched for meaning in ancient texts, in philosophical treatises, in the words of spiritual gurus, but nothing resonated with the depths of his despair. The more he sought, the more elusive truth seemed to become. He was lost in a labyrinth of his own thoughts, each turn leading him further from the center, further from himself. He was a prisoner in his own mind, the walls closing in, suffocating him with their suffocating familiarity. He questioned the nature of reality itself. Was this all there was? An endless cycle of suffering and disillusionment? Was there no escape from the prison of his own perceptions? He railed against the injustice of it all, the randomness of fate, the cruel indifference of the universe. But his cries echoed unanswered in the vast emptiness of his own being. He was alone, truly alone, in a way he had never imagined possible. Section 1. The breaking point. The pressure mounted, an unbearable weight crushing him from within. The carefully constructed walls he had erected around his heart crumbled into dust. He could no longer maintain the facade. The mask of normalcy shattered, revealing the broken man beneath. A primal scream escaped his lips, a raw expression of pain and frustration that echoed across the empty landscape. It was the sound of a soul breaking free from its self-imposed prison, a desperate cry for release from the torment that consumed him. Tears streamed down his face, a torrent of grief and anguish he could no longer contain. He had reached his breaking point, the edge of the abyss staring back at him with cold indifference. In that moment of utter despair, something shifted within him. The illusion of control, the desperate need to maintain appearances, evaporated like mist in the morning sun. He was left raw, exposed, vulnerable. He collapsed to his knees, his body racked with sobs. The pain was unbearable, yet strangely liberating. He had hit rock bottom, and in the depths of his despair, he found a strange sense of peace. He surrendered to the pain, allowing it to wash over him, cleanse him, strip him bare. He let go of his ego, his need to control, his fear of vulnerability. He embraced the void, the emptiness that had terrified him for so long. And as he surrendered, a strange thing happened. The pain began to recede, replaced by a profound sense of stillness. It was as if the storm within him had finally broken, leaving behind a calm, clear sky. He was empty, yet strangely complete. He was broken, yet strangely whole. He had lost everything, yet he had never felt so free. He remained there for what felt like an eternity, suspended in a timeless void. His thoughts, once a raging torrent, now flowed like a gentle stream, meandering through the landscape of his consciousness. He had no sense of time, no desire, no purpose. He simply was. Adrift in the vast ocean of existence, he had become one with the universe, a drop of water returning to the infinite sea. It was a state of pure being, of unadulterated awareness, free from the constraints of his ego, his perceptions, his preconceived notions. He experienced the world with a clarity he had never known before. He saw the interconnectedness of all things, the intricate web of life that bound every living creature together. He felt the pulse of the universe, the rhythm of creation and destruction, the ebb and flow of energy that sustained all of existence. He found himself drawn to nature as if guided by an unseen hand. The concrete jungle of the city held no appeal for him anymore. The artificial constructs of human civilization felt suffocating, a stark contrast to the raw, untamed beauty of the natural world. He wandered through forests and fields, climbed mountains and swam in oceans. He felt a deep connection to the earth, a sense of belonging he had never experienced before. Nature's rhythms soothed his soul, its silence spoke volumes. The wind whispered secrets through the trees, ancient wisdom carried on the breeze. The rustling leaves seemed to sing a song of resilience and renewal, of life and death, of constant change and enduring beauty. He listened with his heart, his mind finally still. He observed the intricate dance of life unfolding around him. He saw the delicate balance of predator and prey, the symbiotic relationships between plants and animals, the ebb and flow of the seasons. In the natural world, he found a reflection of his own journey, a reminder that destruction and creation were two sides of the same coin. In the solitude of nature, he became aware of a space within himself, a sanctuary of peace and stillness. It was a place beyond the reach of his thoughts, his emotions, his ego's incessant chatter. It was a space of pure awareness, of being present in the moment, of simply existing. He couldn't explain it, but he knew it was real. It was a place he could retreat to whenever the world became too overwhelming, a refuge from the storms of his own mind. He began to sense a presence within this space, an intelligence that was both familiar and profoundly other. It wasn't a voice he heard, but rather a knowing, an understanding that transcended words. He realized that this intelligence was always there, patiently waiting for him to quiet his mind enough to hear its whispers. It was the source of all creation, the energy that animated all living things, the force that bound the universe together. It was in this space, in the presence of this infinite intelligence, that he began to heal. He began to see the world with new eyes. It was as if a veil had been lifted, revealing a hidden dimension of vibrant energy and interconnectedness. Everything vibrated with life, a symphony of frequencies harmonizing in perfect balance. He felt the pulse of the earth beneath his feet, the warmth of the sun on his skin, the gentle caress of the wind. Each sensation was a reminder of his connection to something larger than himself, a tapestry of vibrant frequencies woven together by an unseen hand. He realized that this energy was not separate from him, but rather flowed through him, animating his every thought, feeling and action. It was the source of his own vitality, the wellspring of his creativity, the driving force behind his evolution. He began to experiment with this energy, learning to sense its subtle nuances, its ebb and flow. He discovered that he could influence it with his thoughts and intentions, shaping it like clay in his hands. As he delved deeper into this understanding, a profound sense of humility washed over him. He realized the arrogance of his former self, the delusion of control he had clung to so tightly. He had been a puppet dancing to the strings of his ego, blind to the true nature of reality. He saw the same arrogance reflected in the world around him, in the relentless pursuit of power, wealth and status. He saw the pain and suffering it caused, the disconnect it fostered between individuals, communities, and the natural world. He felt a deep compassion for those still trapped in the illusion, those who clung to their egos like life rafts in a stormy sea. He understood their fear, their need for control, their desperate search for meaning in a world that often seemed meaningless. He knew he couldn't force anyone to see what he saw, to feel what he felt. The journey was theirs to take, in their own time, in their own way. He walked a different path now, his steps lighter, his heart open. The world hadn't changed, but he had. He no longer sought to control or manipulate, but to observe, to understand, to connect. His life was no longer a performance, but a quiet symphony of presence and authenticity. The people he encountered sensed his transformation. They were drawn to his energy, his quiet strength, his unwavering compassion. He didn't offer easy answers or quick fixes, but a listening ear, a kind word, a shared moment of presence. He saw the flicker of recognition in their eyes, a glimmer of hope in the darkness. He knew that his journey, his pain, his transformation had a purpose. He was meant to be a beacon, a guide, a living testament to the possibility of healing and wholeness. The path he walked was not always easy. There were moments of doubt, of fear of the old patterns resurfacing. But he had found his center, his anchor in the storm. He had discovered the truth that had always been within him, waiting to be revealed, that he was not his thoughts, his emotions, his past. He was something more, something infinite, something eternal. He embraced his purpose, not with a sense of grandiosity, but with a quiet humility. He knew he was merely a vessel, an instrument in the hands of a greater power. His life was no longer his own, but a gift to be shared, a legacy of transformation to be passed on. He shared his story, not as a tale of triumph, but as a testament to the transformative power of vulnerability, surrender and grace. He spoke of his struggles, his breakdowns, his moments of despair, and how they had led him to a place of profound peace and understanding. His words resonated with those who were ready to hear them. They saw in him a reflection of their own struggles, their own longing for healing and wholeness. They felt his compassion, his unwavering belief in their potential, and they were inspired to embark on their own journeys of self-discovery. He didn't seek to create followers, but to awaken the sleeping giants within each person he encountered. He knew that true transformation could only come from within, from a deep desire to break free from the chains of the ego and embrace the fullness of one's being. The man continued on his journey, ever evolving, ever growing. He knew that the path to enlightenment was not a destination, but a lifelong process of learning, unlearning, and relearning. He embraced the unknown with open arms, trusting in the wisdom of the universe, the guidance of the divine spark that resided within him and all beings. He carried within him the echoes of all he had experienced, the wisdom gained through suffering, the compassion born from connection, the strength forged in the fires of transformation. He was a walking paradox, a shattered man who had become whole, a lost soul who had found his way home. And as he walked, he left behind a trail of breadcrumbs, a path of echoes for others to follow. He knew that his journey was not unique, but rather a reflection of the universal longing for wholeness, for connection, for a love that transcended the boundaries of the self and embraced the interconnectedness of all things.